of this January, there we
Okay.
used it.
Okay. I didn't even see that. And then, yeah, I didn't pay attention. Then, so the Yamin, are you going to teach us how to write code using Yamin?
Sorry, how to?
Are you going to teach us how to write code inside Yamin?
How to write code in YAML? It's not a part of this training. For this, there is
Oh,
a
it's
different
not
training
that.
altogether.
Okay. 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 That's fine.
All right,
Thank
shall
you.
we move ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, what we discussed yesterday, we discussed something regarding the CI/CD part. How can we enable CI? How can we enable CD? And how can we deploy the entire code into the web application? We deployed web application yesterday. Along with the web application, we deployed a SQL database. We connected the application with the database, and then we deployed the code inside the application, right? Using CI/CD. Now, when we deployed the code yesterday, we deployed it using Azure pipelines. So is the Azure pipeline only tool with the help of which the deployment can be done? No, we have multiple other tools as well. So we have multiple CI/CD tools. For example, let's say if I go to internet and if I just type here popular CI/CD tools, so you will find out there are a lot of CI/CD tools available, right? So let's say I click on this first option. So you'll find out there are a lot of, okay, this option. So we have a lot of CI/CD tools available, right? So one very popular tool is Jenkins. Jenkins is a very popular CI/CD tool. So let's say I click on this link, 14 best CI/CD pipeline tools. So I can click on this. So when we click on this here, we'll find out what are the popular tools that we have for CI/CD. So here you can see on the left hand side, we have one such tool as Jenkins. So we have a lot of tools, Jenkins, Circle CI, TeamCity, Bamboo, GitLab, Buddy, Travis, CodeShip, GoCD, and so on. So multiple such tools are available. So is it mandatory that we use Jenkins? Is it mandatory that we use Azure pipeline all the time? No. Now let's say there is an organization who is running their project in Azure DevOps. But when they are building a code, they would like to build a code, right? So when they are building a code, maybe they would like to build a code using the Jenkins. They want to use Jenkins in order to build a code. So how we can do integration with Jenkins? How can we enable continuous integration with Jenkins? We'll try to see all that part. So as we discussed, Jenkins is a very popular, it's a very popular CI/CD tool, right? With the help of which continuous build can be done, with the help of which continuous build, or you can say continuous integration can be done. So let's try to have a look. How can we do this? See, so first of all, what we need to do, first of all, we need to create a machine for Jenkins. We will be creating a machine, right? Which machine? We will be creating a virtual machine. And when we will be creating a virtual machine, that virtual machine will have a Jenkins image. So it's going to be a normal virtual machine, but on top of that virtual machine, we will have the Jenkins image. So how can we get that? One option is we can simply go to the Azure portal. We can go to Marketplace. And from here, from the Marketplace, we can get the Jenkins image. So if we simply go to Marketplace, in Marketplace, we get an option to get the Jenkins image. So let's say we go to Marketplace, we can type here Jenkins, and we would be able to see a lot of Jenkins images would be available here. Right, a lot of Jenkins images. One image is Jenkins Nile Sparter, one is Jenkins server, Jenkins server. So a lot of Jenkins images are available here. So this one is Jenkins packaged by Bitnami. This image is free of cost. If you have a look at the other images, for other images we have to pay. For example, for this particular image, we need to pay 1.20 rupees per hour. It's in it's in Indian rupees, right? So we have to pay a small amount every hour. And this is not the cost of a virtual machine. This is apart from the virtual machine cost. So you have to pay for the virtual machine, plus you have to pay because you are using this particular image, right? So basically what we will be doing, we will be creating a virtual machine along with the Jenkins image. Okay.
When you say image, sorry, when you say image, what do you mean by that?
When we say image, what do I mean? Okay.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Normally when we create a virtual machine, we have to select an image. For example, let me tell you what do I mean. Now let's say you create a machine. Let me show you here. Okay. So let's say you create a virtual machine number 1. And when you are creating a virtual machine, you deploy this with Windows Server 2019.
Okay. So that is it.
So when we created a virtual machine, which image we used? We imaged Windows Server 2019, right?
Okay.
Now let's say after getting this virtual machine, now you install some softwares on it. You deployed some applications. Let's say application 1, application 2, application 3, application 4. After deploying these applications, what you can do, you can create the image of VM number 1. You can create the image of this virtual machine. So maybe you can call this as VM number 1 image, right? Now let's say you deploy one more virtual machine. Now you deploy VM number 2. So when you deploy VM number 2, you would like to use the image of VM number 1. In order to create VM2, you would like to use the image of VM1. What will happen now? So VM2 will automatically have Windows Server 2019, and application 1, application 2, application 3, application 4 will be deployed on VM number 2. You don't have to deploy it later on. As soon as you use this image, the image of VM number 1, you automatically get all these applications because we have used this particular image. That is what I mean by image. Hope you got the clarity.
Yeah.
Okay. Now what we will try to do, see, we'll try to work on a project. Which project? Okay. Now what are we discussing? We are discussing, we have something called as here. We have something called as Azure repos. What do we have in Azure repos? In Azure repos, we have a branch. Let's say we have a master branch where we will have some code. What we were usually doing, we were usually embedding this code into the build pipeline. This is our build pipeline. Using the build pipeline, we were building the code. Right? This is our build pipeline. Using this build pipeline, we were building the code. I'm saying I don't want to build a code using this build pipeline. I would like to use Jenkins to build the code. So what I need to do, I need to create a machine. Maybe I can call this as Jenkin VM. How we will get this Jenkin VM? We will be creating a virtual machine. And when we will be creating a virtual machine, we will use the Jenkins image to create this virtual machine. So what happens inside this machine, we will get a Jenkin application. Jenkin application will be there. So I am saying using this Jenkin VM, we would like to, or using this Jenkin application, we would like to build the code, right? From where this Jenkin VM or Jenkin application will be getting the code, it will be getting the raw code from the Azure repos, from this master branch. And here in this Jenkins application, we will create a project, and using that project, we will build that code. That is something we will try to achieve. So first of all, what do we need? We need to have a project in Azure DevOps, right? Here in this Azure DevOps, we need to have a project. So let's say this is our Azure DevOps. This is my organization, V-9 JISI, and we do not have any project here. So let's try to import one project. So maybe I can go to Azure DevOps demo generator, and we can try to get one project here. Right? So we can say sign in. You can say choose template. So which project we would like to get? Let's say this project we would like to get, My Shuttle. We would like to get this a Java based project, right? So I'm saying My Shuttle. What is the name of the project? Let's say I give it same name. In which organization? V-9 JISI, in this organization. And I can say create project, right? And I can say create project. So I would be able to create the project here. Okay, so project is being imported. So what we would like to do in the meantime, now in the meantime, we would also like to create this Jenkins VM, right? This Jenkins VM also we'll try to create. So how can we create this? Let's have a look. Okay, so how can we get this? See, I showed you one option is we can simply go to marketplace. So let's say I would like to use this image, Jenkins package by Bitnami. This image is free. I can say create and I can click on this. So from here, I can create a virtual machine. So using this image, I can create a virtual machine and we can refer this machine as a Jenkins VM, right? We would be able to refer this machine as a Jenkins VM. So one option is this. Same thing. See which lab we are doing. We are doing this particular lab. Let me show you which lab we are doing. So which lab we are doing? See, we are doing this Jenkins lab. So when we are doing this Jenkins lab, it also gives us an option to use the same image, right? So this is a lab we are doing, configuring a CD pipeline for your Jenkins. So when you scroll down on this particular lab, here it gives us an option to configure the Jenkins VM. This Jenkins VM is nothing. It says this Jenkins VM image is available on the Azure Marketplace. It is based upon the Ubuntu Linux VM. Right? So I can click on this, and with the help of this, I can create a virtual machine which will be acting like a Jenkins VM. So let the machine be deployed. Let me just start the deployment. So same image we are using, Jenkins package by Bitnami. So we are using the same image. Maybe we can say create. We can say create. We can define the resource group. Let's say I create a resource group with the name RG Jenkins, as we are doing a Jenkins lab. What is the name? Let's say I give it a name Jenkins VM. In which region? Let's say we are deploying it in West US region. Right? How much resources? Let's say we are giving it 4 CPU, 16 GB RAM. It's using this Jenkins image. What is the username and password? So here you can define the username and password. Let's say username I define as my name, and then we can define the password. Right? And now we can say review and create. So we are starting the deployment.
So this time that we are building this Jenkins machine, I see you did not like disable. Okay, you go to monitor tab and then you click disable. Hello? Oh, it's not.
Okay, so this machine is now deployed. So we can see this machine has been deployed, right? So what are we able to do? We are able to deploy the Jenkins VM, right? Now, how are we going to access this machine? It's a Linux-based machine. So one option is I can install a tool called as Putty. There is a tool called as Putty. With the help of the tool, I can access this Jenkins machine, which is a Linux-based machine. If I don't want to make any changes to my work laptop, I can create a virtual machine. So what I'll do, I'll just create a virtual machine and I will consider that virtual machine as my laptop machine, right? So let's say I go here. I'll say create. Let's say I'm creating in the same resource room. Let's say I give it a name, my laptop machine. So I will be considering this as my laptop machine, and using this machine, I will be accessing the Jenkins machine, right? So let's say I create this as Windows 10 Pro, 4 CPU, 16 GB RAM. I can give it a username. Let's say laptop is a username, and then we can give it a password, right? Then we can say we do have the license for Windows 10. Then maybe we can go to monitoring. We can say boot diagnosis disabled, and we are creating this machine as well. So this machine will be deployed, right? This step is not mandatory. Why I'm doing this? Because I do not want to make any changes to my work laptop. That is the reason I'm performing this step. Any questions so far?
Yeah, question. So when you create this machine now, you see you go to the laptop, I mean, to the monitor option, and then but when you were creating Jenkins,
Your voice is not coming clear. Either like you are too away from your like headphone.
Okay.
Or I think
I'm not even having that. Can you hear me now?
yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. So when you were creating, but right now when you were creating this visual machine, see you go to the monitor option, then you click level.
Do you have headphones?
The phone?
Headphones.
You want me to put it on?
Yeah, do you have headphones?
Yeah, I have it. You want me to?
Yeah, because your voice is not coming clear. I'm unable to understand your question.
Yeah, I don't know what is really going on. Okay, let me put it. I don't know what is. Okay, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, it's much better. Yeah, please go
It's
ahead.
much, oh, I don't know what is wrong. Okay. So my question is, when you were creating this visual machine, you see, you go to the monitor option, and then now you click disable. But
Yeah, disable is, yeah. So what we are doing, it says boot diagnostics. I disable the boot diagnostics. What is boot diagnostics? It says when the machine will be booting up, whenever you will be booting up your virtual machine, do you want to collect the logs? I'm saying no, I'm disabling that part. So if in case you are interested in collecting the logs while your machine is booting up, then maybe you can enable it.
Okay, but but you didn't do that when you were creating the Jenkins
Probably
machine.
I would have missed that, right? Maybe I would have missed that by mistake.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually I do it for all the machines. Maybe I would have missed that for the Jenkins.
Okay.
Okay, let's just wait for the laptop machine to be created. Then we'll take the RDP of this machine.
But you said the Jenkins machine is a Linux machine, and this one now you are using Windows. So are they going to communicate?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Communication depends upon the networking. Communication depends upon the credentials, depends upon the authentication and authorization. It has nothing to do with Windows and Linux.
Okay. I hope I'm not asking too much question.
That's absolutely fine.
Okay.
Okay, so now it is done. So basically we are able to deploy this machine. So what we can do, we can take the RDP of this machine now. So this is the public IP. So we can copy it using its public IP. And from this laptop machine, in this laptop machine, we will deploy a tool called as putty. And from that tool, we will try to connect to the Jenkins VM, which is a Linux-based machine. So first I'll take the RDP of this laptop machine. So I can provide the username, that is laptop. I can provide the password that we set up while we were creating the machine. We can say okay. Okay. So now this machine is up. So what we will do, the first thing that we'll try to do is we'll try to download a tool called
Putty.
as putty. So maybe I can go to internet from this laptop machine. Okay. And we can try to download that too. So let's say we just type here putty.org. Right, this is the tool. So it says download putty. We would like to download putty. So we have multiple options. We can download this as 64-bit MSI, or maybe we can download this as exe as well. So we scroll down, we can see here putty.exe. So let's say I download this putty.exe, where it is in my downloads folder. And if I click on here, I'm able to open this file, right? I'm able to open this too. So this putty tool is open. Now what we will try to do, see, using this putty tool, by default, Jenkins, we have created a Jenkins machine. And by default, Jenkins listens on port 8080 by default. By default, Jenkins listen on port 8080 using HTTP, right? HTTP is not a secured connection. If in case we would like to connect our laptop machine with Jenkins machine over HTTPS, we can do that as well. But if in case we would like to go with HTTPS connection, we need an SSL or TLS certificate. A certificate will be required, right? Now let's say if I do not have a certificate, but still I want that whenever my laptop machine will be communicating to the Jenkins machine, it should communicate in the secure manner. So what we can do, we can create the SSH tunnel. SSH tunnel can be created, right? What happens when we create the SSH tunnel? So whenever we create the SSH tunnel, whenever the packet will be going from my laptop machine to the Jenkins machine, or it will be going from Jenkins machine to my laptop machine, it will be going in the encrypted manner. Packet will be going in the encrypted manner. So how can I create the SSH tunnel? Maybe I can open command prompt. I can simply open command prompt. Let's say I open this as administrator. Let's say I increase the font size. So maybe I go here and I increase the font size of this command. Right? Okay. Now, right now I'm in C user's laptop. Where is the Jenkins application? In my downloads folder. So first of all, I will go to my downloads folder. Right. Now I am inside my downloads folder where we have the Jenkins application as well. Right. If I go to my downloads, we can see here I have the putty, sorry, where we have the putty application as well, right?
Putty, yeah.
Yeah, using this putty application only, we are going to connect to the Jenkins machine because Jenkins is a Linux-based machine. So I can say let's use putty.exe And what I'm trying to create, I am trying to create the SSH tunnel between my machine, local machine, on port 8080 on local host port 8080. And I'm trying to do this with which machine? With the Jenkins machine. So what is the username of Jenkins machine? This is the username of Jenkins machine. And what is the IP address of Jenkins machine? So we know from here that this is the IP address of Jenkins machine. Right? So when we click on this Jenkins machine, this is the IP address of my Jenkins machine. That is a public IP address of Jenkins machine. This is the IP. So I'm trying to connect to the Jenkins VM, right? I can put the IP here. Hey guys, before I create the connection, before I create the tunnel, if I go to my laptop, and if I type here HTTP localhost 8080. So let's say if I go to my browser and if I type here HTTP, if I type here HTTP localhost on 8080, I am unable to access anything. It says cannot display the page, right? But as soon as I create the tunnel between my laptop and between the Jenkins machine on my browser, if I hit HTTP localhost 8080, it will be accessing the Jenkins application that is running inside the Jenkins machine, right? That is the reason I'm trying to create the tunnel between my laptop and between this Jenkins machine. So using putty, I'm trying to create the SSH tunnel. L is for my laptop local, 8080 on localhost 8080, right? And here I'm trying to create this with the Jenkins VM.
Jenkins machine.
And say okay, enter. It says it is going to use this key for the encryption. I'm saying okay. Now this small box that we see here, this is a box for the Jenkins application. This is a small box for the Jenkins VM. It says what is the password of Jenkins VM. So we can put the password that we have put while creating this machine. So now we are connected to this Jenkins VM. From our laptop to the Jenkins VM, the tunnel has been created. How can I validate that? If I go to my laptop now, and if I go to a browser, and if I type here localhost 8080, I would be able to access a Jenkins application. It says welcome to Jenkins. And this Jenkins application is running where? On the Jenkins VM. Now it says enter the username and password. Is it asking for the username and password of Jenkins machine? No. It is asking for the username and password of Jenkins application. So how can I find out the username and password of the Jenkins application? See, this is a Jenkins machine, the small box. So in this, maybe we can run a command, and using this, we can find out the username and password of Jenkins application. So we can say sudo cat. In here, we have a directory with the name home. In home, we have a directory with the name Bitnami. Bitnami is the name of the organization who has provided the image for Jenkins. In this, we have a directory, let's say with the name Bitnami underscore credentials, right? This is the one. And now we can say enter. So it says you can also use, this is a default username and password. This is the username and password. Maybe I can put this on a notepad. This is a username and password. So this is a username and password for the Jenkins application. So we are able to get the username. We are also able to get the password. So username is user and password is so and so. Right. So if I copy this password and let's say if I go here, I can type user and this is the password. I can say keep you sign in and I can sign in. So now we are able to log in inside the Jenkins application, right? We are able to log in inside the Jenkins application. Any question, any query so far before we move forward? Okay. Now guys, what we will try to do, now we will try to create a project in Jenkins. But before we create a project in Jenkins, we need to deploy some plugins. In Jenkins, we can deploy some plugins too. So we can go to manage Jenkins When we go to manage Jenkins here, it gives us an option to deploy some plugins, manage the plugins. So we can click on manage plugins. And which plugins we would like to deploy? See here we have multiple installed plugins, available plugins. So let's say we would like to go with the available plugin. So first plugin we would like to deploy is VSTS. Earlier DevOps was called as VSTS, Visual Studio Team Services. So we will try to deploy this plugin, VSTS Team Services. We are deploying this plugin. Then we will try to deploy a plugin for Maven, right? Why? Because we are going to build a Java based application, Java based code. So what we will do, we will go here and we will try to deploy a plugin for Maven. This is a Maven integration. Okay. We can say install without restart. So now we are deploying the Maven plugin. And then we will try to deploy a plugin for, Git. Why for Git? The source code that we are going to use. See, this is my project. If we click on refresh, this is our project where we are going to build a Java based code. This is my shuttle project. In my shuttle project, I have got a repository. This is a repository. And what kind of a repository we have? Is it a Git based repository? Yes, it's a Git based repository. We can see here it's a Git based repository. Right? That is the reason we are just going to deploy this. Right? That is the reason we are just going to deploy this Git tool as well, or Git plugin as well. So how can we get this? Just give me one moment. I think we haven't got the code here. Code has not came here successfully. Okay, because we are unable to see it here, right? So it says this is empty. Let me just try to re-import the project. It doesn't look like it's imported successfully because we are unable to see the code. It's empty. The repository was empty, right? So let me try to delete this and let me try to re-import the project. So let's say create project.
So plugin is used for what? Hello?
Yes.
Plugin.
Yes.
I mean, I see you downloading those plugins. They are used for, what is the purpose for that?
Okay, see, we are going to integrate Jenkins with Azure DevOps. So when we are integrating it, we need some plugins.
Okay.
VSTS, earlier Azure DevOps was called as VSTS. So one plugin you can think of, we have deployed for the Azure DevOps. Second plugin we have installed for Maven. We are going to build a Java based code. So for Java based code, we use Maven. That's the reason we have installed the Maven plugin. Third, the repository that we have, it's a Git based repository. So we will be deploying the Git plugin. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Prof, good morning. The projects that we always have, They're always software projects. I don't know. Is it possible that we can use one of the software projects to do this CI/CD pipeline?
Which project we can use? Sorry.
Software, because most of the projects here now that they use this the CI/CD, they are software projects.
What do you mean by software projects?
Like how can I put it?
Sorry, like
put in a software that we have to use to run phones and all the like.
these are nothing but softwares only.
Okay.
If you have a look, this is, if you go to the source code, this is the entire code for the software. If you go to main, here you can see, if you go to Java, it's a Java based code. It's nothing but a web application, right? So which software you are referring, I'm unable to understand. These are all softwares that we are trying to deploy on the infrastructure.
Okay.
It might be you trying to say like right now we are just using the default. We are not really like creating any, I mean, we are not building anything. Is that what you are trying to say? Like we are just using just the default.
Yeah,
default,
like when we go to
application.
projects, I don't know if we go to work normal job sites, are we going to get this one, or we are supposed to create project that will run it there in that company?
Right. See, project creation doesn't get happen in a couple of hours. For project to be created completely, it can take up to months and it can take up to years. In training, we have very limited time. We have couple of hours only. So if we start creating this project from scratch, it may take a good number of months to first create the project and then work on that project. That is the reason what Microsoft has done. Microsoft has given us a platform from where we can get those projects. Okay, let me give you a very layman terms example. Let's say you want to learn how to drive a car. What will you do? First option is maybe you can get a second-hand car from somewhere. You can try to learn how to ride it. Other option is you can first try to build your own car from scratch. If you try to build your own car from scratch, maybe it will take you years to first build your own car, and then you would be able to learn how to drive a car. Similarly, here is in training we have limited time. What Microsoft has done, right? What Microsoft has done, they have given us some platforms from where we can get some projects and we can do our practices. Because entire project creation can take good amount of time, right?
Okay, but the question is, when we like say when we go to work, start like, okay, say for example, we get a job today. Are they going to ask us like to build like any of these software, like to build them and then deploy them? It might be, are they going to ask us to do something like that?
Absolutely. See, if you already know how to use a build pipeline, if you already know how to use a source code, if you already know how to use a release pipeline, if you already know how to create a virtual machine, how to deploy an application code inside that, how to create a web application, how to deploy an application code inside that. If in case you need to integrate Jenkins in your project, if you know all these things, you would be able to do your day-to-day activities in the organization that you're going to join. Right?
No, how can I even put it? So I'm just concerned the fact that it might be they will tell us, okay, like this, like the plugin that you were installing, it might be they will tell you, they will ask us to build a plugin.
They will not ask you to build a plugin.
Okay.
Your organization is, your organization is not the one who is going to build a plugin. Who has built this plugin? Jenkins is the organization who has built a plugin.
Okay.
So if you join any company today as a DevOps engineer, they might ask you to use a plugin. They will never ask you to build a plugin. Okay. That's a job altogether for a different profile, not for a DevOps engineer, not for the DevOps architect.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
They will not ask you. Now, if they ask you to integrate Jenkins with Azure DevOps, they expect you to know which all plugins you need to use, how to use those plugins, but they do not expect you to know how to create the plugin from scratch. Not at all, not at all the profile of a DevOps engineer, not at all the profile of a DevOps architect, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. See, basically we have got the project here. Now this is, okay, now basically we have installed this plugin. We have installed two plugins as of now. One plugin is for the Maven and one plugin is for the VSTS, right? I will deploy one more plugin. Why we are deploying one more plugin? Because the project that we have, inside the project we have a repo, and this is a Git based repository. So that is the reason I'm going to install one more plugin. I'm going to install the plugin for Git source code management, right? So I'll say install without restart. So I have deployed the required plugins now, right? It is now deploying the Git plugin. Now we have installed the required plugins now. Now what we will do, see, I hope you saw earlier as well, when we were building the code using the pipeline, we need some packages while we are building the code. So similarly, when we will be building this Java based code, we might be needing Maven, right? Now there are two options. One option is we can install the Maven right now manually. Second option is we can say whenever Maven will be required, the Jenkins can reach out to the Apache server and it can install the Maven automatically. So we have two options. So what we can do, maybe we can say, we can go to manage Jenkins. We can go to this global tool configuration. And here we can say we need Maven. We can scroll down. So here we can see Maven. And we can say whenever Maven will be required, we can say add Maven. We can give the name to this. Let's say I give it a name Maven only, right? And we can say save. So it says it will install the Maven automatically. When it will install the Maven, whenever we will be building the code and it needs some packages from Maven, Jenkins server will reach out to the Apache server and it will download and install the Maven automatically. So whenever Maven will be required, it will go ahead and deploy the Maven automatically. Okay? That is what we have done. Now what we can do, now we can create the project in Jenkins. How? We can go to new item. When we click on new item, here we can say what is the name of our project. Maybe I give it a same name, the name that we have in Azure DevOps, that is my shuttle. It's a Maven project. And we can say, okay. So we are able to create this project, right? So we are able to create this project with the name my shuttle. Now guys, can you tell me from where this my shuttle project will be getting a code? Now we define that this project, we will be building the code using this Jenkins VM. So from where this Jenkins VM is getting a code?
From Git.
From Git, from our Azure repos, from our branch. My Azure repos is, this time it's a Git based repository, right? So basically, can I say I am getting my source code from the Azure repos, which is a Git based repository. I'm getting a code from the master branch, right? Okay. So here you can see source code management, right? My repository is Git based repository. We'll be getting a code from this repository. It says enter the repository URL from where we'll be getting a code. So where is the repository URL? I can simply go to my repos. This is my repos, right? I can say clone, and this is the repository URL. So I can copy this repository URL. So I can put this repository URL, right? But my repository, if I type it here, it says it failed to connect. Why it failed to connect? Because my Git-based repository, it's a private repository. We need credentials to get the code from here. So I can say we can provide the credentials. We can add the credentials. We can add the credentials for Jenkins, right? So it says provide the username and password. How can we get the username and password? Here. From where we have got the code, or we have got the URL for the code, here it says generate Git credentials. We can generate the credentials. So this is the username v-9gisi, and this is the password. So we can get the username here, that is v-9gisi, and here we can put the password. So we are able to get the credentials. We can say add. Right? So it says here credentials. Now we can say this credentials we would like to use. And now this error message will disappear. It says okay. Now once we will get the code from here, after this, what we would like to do. Now, what do we want to build? So on the left hand side here, we can define the build. So what are we trying to build? So we can define what are we trying to build here. So we can define that as well. So it is going to use form.xml file. It is going to use form.xml. And what are we going to build? We can define it here. See, this is the lab we are doing. So you can check it from here as well. This is what we are going to build. So which packages we are going to build, you can define it here. These packages we are going to build. This is a package. This package we are going to build. So we will be performing a test. This is what we are going to build. We can define it here. Right? Once it will be built, do you want to take some actions? Do you want to take some post-build actions? I'm saying yes. Once the code is built, we would like to archive the artifacts. Once the code will be built, we would like to archive the artifacts. So which files we would like to archive? So you can define the files that you would like to archive. Maybe I would like to archive these files, target.war files and SQL files. So these are the files that we would like to archive. So we can define it here and done. We can say save. So we are able to create this entire project here. Now this time we are not using pipeline to build the code. Here we have an option to build it now. Do we have any build history as of now? See, I hope you can see here build history. There is no build as of now. But now we are going to build the code. I can click on here build now. So when I click on here build now, we can see here #1. First build is going on now. So now we are getting the code from Azure repos and we are building the code using Jenkins. But guys, is it a manual build or is it a continuous integration? Is it an automatic build? Am I building
automatic. It's automatic build.
No. See, it's manual as of now. See, I'm going here and I'm clicking on build now. It is not building it automatically. I'm going, see, I click, see, right now there is a first build. If I click on here build now, it will have the second build. So what I'm doing, it's a manual build as of now. Manually, I'm doing it. What would be the automatic build? Automatic build would be like, as soon as I make some changes into the Azure repos, see, I want to enable continuous integration.
Okay.
Now I say I would like to enable continuous integration means as soon as I enable some changes here, automatically this Jenkins application should start building the code. That would be an automatic build, right? How can we do this? In order for us to achieve that, we need to create some sort of connectivity between Jenkins VM and between the Azure repos, right? Or between the Azure DevOps, whatever you want to call. So we can create something called as service hook, which people sometimes also refer as webhook, right? We need to hook one service with another service. We need to hook Jenkins with Azure repos.
Azure repos. Yeah.
Let's see how can we do this, right? How can we do this? See, we discussed Jenkins by default listens on port 8080. Jenkins by default listens on port 8080. I am saying if we do any change into this Azure repos, it should trigger the Jenkins application. But whenever any request will be going to this Jenkins application, it will be going via Jenkins VM. So first of all, in this Jenkins VM, we have to open port 8080. So I can go to the Jenkins VM. I can go to its networking settings and I can open port 8080. Why we are opening port 8080? If any request is coming on port 8080, please allow it. So we can say add the inbound port rule. So if a traffic is coming from anywhere, right, traffic is coming from anywhere, from any port, it is hitting on port 8080, coming via any protocol, allow it. So maybe we can say, let's say we give it a priority 300, we give it a name Jenkins rule, right? And we can say add. So we have allowed port 8080 on this Jenkins VM. Now what we can do, Okay, now we will try to create this service hook. We will try to hook Jenkins VM with this Azure repos. How can we do this? We are trying to do this change into this project. So we can go to the project settings. When we go to the project settings under general, you will see an option for the service hook. So I can click on service hook here. When we click on service hook, now it gives us an option to create a service hook. So we can say create subscription. For which application? We are trying to do this for Jenkins. So we can see Jenkins here. Next. Trigger this type of event. When to trigger this? Whenever build is completed or whenever code is pushed. I'm saying whenever any person push a code to the master branch, then it should trigger this Jenkins VM. Which repository? This is the name of the repository. Which branch? Master branch. Means any change happened to the master branch, any code is pushed to the master branch, then it should trigger the Jenkins VM. Next. What to do? Do you want to trigger generic build? We are saying yes. What is the Jenkins base URL? So what is the Jenkins URL? See, this is Jenkins URL. HTTP. Where it is going to hit on Jenkins? On the Jenkins IP. So this is a Jenkins IP, public IP of Jenkins machine. Right? This is a public IP of Jenkins machine. And we discussed Jenkins by default listens on port 8080. So here we'll put 8080. What is the username and password of the Jenkins application? So we already know this is the username and password for the Jenkins application. We have already penned this down, right? So it says either you can put the username and password. So username is user. Either you can put the password or you can put the API token. We already have the password. How to generate the API token? Let me show you that as well. See, if we would like to generate the API token, it is asking us the API token for the user. So we can click on this user here. We can click on the configure. We would like to do some configuration for this user. And here it gives us an option for the API token. So we can say add new token, right? For which we are adding a new token, let's say for DevOps, and we can say generate. So this is the API token. We can copy it. Let's say I put it here. So now we have the password. Now we also have the API token. Let's say I put the API token here. Right? See. Now, if I click on test, it will automatically trigger it. See, if I click on test, it will automatically start building the code. Let me show you. This is our project. In our project, how many builds we have so far? 2 builds. Now I'm not going to click on this build now. I will not be clicking on this build now. I will simply say here test. When we click on test, it will automatically try to test it. So see here, automatically you will see third build will be created. It looks like continuous integration is working successfully. This is what continuous integration is, right? It says okay. You can say finish. How can we check it? Simple. Now we can say